Cool. Kia ora, Guy. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you so much for having me. What a privilege.
Pleasure to have you here. So we've got Guy Williams, one of New Zealand's top comedians. We have, the host of the greatest TV show on planet Earth, New Zealand Today, and a commercial whale fisherman.
Yeah,
So, welcome to the potty.
Am I, what of New Zealand's top comedians? I don't even know. I'd say like Fly the Conchords, worldwide famous, Rose Metaphors on HBO, Ursula Carlson's one of the biggest comedians in Australia. I'd say I'm like second tier comedians.
Second tier?
Yeah. I've got a good attitude though, and that counts as something, doesn't it?
Since I introduced you as a commercial whale fisherman, we should probably clear the air there as well.
Yeah.
When I was looking up, some of your backstory on YouTube and stuff, and I was looking across it, and was that one of your sort of early Klingons to fame or some large sort of exposure there?
Yeah.
When you went on breakfast television with Paul Henry to advocate for whale farming.
Whale farming, it's going to happen, man. It's going to be good. So that was my start. That was literally my first gig, I think, basically. Yeah, I got a start. I did a Dai's protege stand-up competition. Dai Henwood gave me my start, and I got to open for him, and that was really cool. And then I got... Based on that, it's bad, man. Every story of mine just makes me look bad, and so I'm like, I shouldn't tell the stories because I promise I'm not a terrible human. But what happened was, I won this competition with Dai Henwood, and they took us out to dinner to like have a night out because we were all new to Auckland and stuff. And I was talking to the people about the Jono project show at the time, and I was like, yeah, it's a bad show or whatever. I don't really like it. There's a lot of things wrong with it. Just as you do. And then I'm like, so what job do you do? And they're like, I'm the producer of the Jono Project show. And I was like, oh no, I felt so bad. I'd like literally criticize the person to their face. And then to their credit, being like, tough and able to handle criticism, they hired me the next year.
True.
So I got brought on as a production person, and then I just hustled every day to try and get on camera, which is a terrible production person. Like, you want your behind the ssscenes people, you don't want your cam op to be trying to get in front of the camera, exactly. But that's what I was doing. And I was in charge of this job of trying to get in the media every week. Yep. And and about 4 or 5 weeks in, I just nailed it, and that was my start, yeah.
How did you land on whale fishing? Because that's probably the one thing that no New Zealander can get behind.
Oh, nah, well, you just look. It's just so easy, and it's just like a shame that, unfortunately, popular media is like that today. I don't want to say mainstream media because I hate when people go, oh, the mainstream media. It's like most media is pretty good, but the internet and 24-hour news television has created this weird form of it's obvious what the media is going to grab at, right? Yeah. You can see politicians... if you say controversial racial stuff or something like that, you're going to get clicks. Or if you have a go at trans people for no reason, you're going to get it's how Trump managed to rocket to the top.
Yeah, that's true.
So I tried to not be racist or sexist in what I did, but I just kind of knew there was a few categories that the media would jump at, and whaling was a big deal at the time. True. So anything whaling. So I was like, I got a whale story out there. I also knew that just things like bike lanes and stuff, just News Talk ZB is going to love that. So I just feed little stories like that, and whaling was the one they picked up on.
Yeah.
So I was like, jackpot. Oh, weird trade me auctions. That was another one. I did a lot of weird trade me auctions and got on breakfast that way and stuff. I sold a Harry Potter invisible cape, which obviously was just a clothes hanger and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was my start. Yeah, good research.
Yeah, cheers, mate. It's just that sort of comedy is so fucking hilarious to me.
Oh,
and so
cheers.
you're standing there under a fake name,
yeah,
talking to Paul Henry.
I met the Prime Minister. I met John Key, and I was in character, so I couldn't just talk to him about anything. I had to talk about whaling.
Whaling.
He handled it quite well. I was surprised. I've never been a big John Key fan, but I was impressed at the way he handled a nutter, a commercial whaling advocate, coming and talking to him about whaling. And then the weirdest thing is when I left the interview, because Paul Henry didn't catch on, no one caught on. When I left, in the foyer of TVNZ, I ran into Michael Hill Jeweller. The celebrity jeweler from Michael Hill Jeweller, obviously. And he was there, and he was like this weird eccentric billionaire in a suit. And he was like, I heard your interview and I like the cut of your jib. And he shook my hand and gave me his business card. And he's like, I have a boat searching for diamonds off the coast of Samoa. And if you wait a couple of months, it could help you in your whaling journey. And I was like, what is this? Are we cutting a business deal right now with Michael Hill Jeweler to start whale farming? It was just like, I loved it and thought he was insane at the same time. I was like, this is so interesting. But good on him, I guess, for just seeing a weird idea and backing it, but also bad on him for thinking whale farming could possibly be a thing.
That kind of falls into the whole stick that you were doing, right?
Yeah.
Although, like, it's like the free market will determine.
Yeah. So I went to Vic Uni here, and I was at class with a whole bunch of like young ACT members, and they all just like the solution. I just loved arguing with them. I actually preferred to argue from their position because they'll be like, the free market, just name a problem, the free market will solve it, you know? And I just loved that idea that just like, there's no problem that can't be solved with the free market. So I just went there and spouted that bullshit. And it was actually a failure at the time because I did it on Paul Henry's show and just no one cared. So I was like, I left the show, text my bosses, I was on TV, and they're like, good on you, mate. And then just had to like do the walk of shame back to C4 where I worked. No one even gave a shit. You know, Jono hadn't even seen the clip. He had to wait till it was like put on YouTube or whatever. And it felt like a failure. And it was lucky that my plan was to do more because I wanted to get on the 7 p.m. show close up. Yeah. But New Zealand Herald picked up on it and it became like a front page story the next day.
Is that when they found out it was a hoax?
Yeah. But they let Paul Henry off the clip. Paul Henry was like, I knew it was a hoax. I was like, no, you didn't. You did the interview and you're like, oh, well, that was a weirdo, on to the next one kind of thing. Have
you always been like an opportunist when it comes to those kind of opportunities? So you're working for Jono and Ben as a producer, but you see an opportunity, put yourself out there and you really go for it. Has that always been a part of your DNA?
Oh yeah, I'd like to say so. There's often times where you're just like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, just the other day, it was the goddamn Auckland flooding, and I saw kids like swimming in the flooding water, and I was like, damn, I'm missing out. You know, like this is the Wendy gets to swim in the field where we play soccer was underwater. I was like, why don't I swim in there? And then the next day I saw people died, and I was like, oh, thank God I didn't do that. But like, yeah, I'm kind of always one like just the other day, man, it's so embarrassing. I was at a Breakers game, and I kind of know, I've interviewed for New Zealand Today the guy who runs the Breakers, and he also is on the mic. He's the GM, he's the former mascot, and he's also on the mic. Shout out to Simon, he's an absolute legend, GM of the year, and he's like, do you want to sing at halftime? And I'm like, yeah. Why did I say yes to that? It was the worst idea. And then, next thing you know, I'm up in front of 10,000 people singing "Candle in the Wind" by Elton John, and it was just like so incredibly cringe with just some other New Zealand crap celebrities. It was I was just like, why am I doing this?
Do you sometimes look at those things and think like, what the hell is my life?
Yeah. But I was just like, life, I think, can be quite boring. And for a lot of people and for a lot of New Zealand, that's what New Zealand Today is about as well, like pumping a bit of life into like people just shit on towns like Gore or Taumaranui and just go, oh, this is a dump hole or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, there is life here. You've just got to like squeeze it a little bit. And that's always been my approach to things in general. Is just like, if you can make it a little bit exciting, why not? And it's like, the consequences are pretty like, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, the consequences are like, a few people at the Breakers game will go, what a knob or what an attention whore or whatever, and I've just got to deal with that and move on. It was fun.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
When you first sort of started out, because you studied political science at Victoria University, yes?
Yeah.
How did you go from such a shift around, and obviously you're still very passionate or interested about politics, to be like, actually I want to give this comedy thing a crack?
I don't think it's a shift at all. I'm just like, politicians enjoy standing up in front of people and talking shit. Like there is that attention, something wrong with us, that attention-seeking behavior, attitude. Like if you did like I know they're kind of being debunked now, but those like Myers-Briggs tests.
Yeah.
We would get, my ex-partner was a politician and we got the same, it was like the same personality as a comedian and like a lawyer who appears in court. True. Like there's a similar sort of vibe. Like you want to stand up and like make a point or get a laugh or something like that. And when I did politics, because I got addicted to politics, like there was a big election like the year before. It was that one that was like right on a knife edge. Don Brash versus Helen Clark, and it was like, it was so exciting and so close, and I kind of watched it like a sports game, politics shouldn't be like that, but it has that appeal, and that's why so many people get so passionate about it. It's like they're watching a soccer team. And I kind of got addicted to politics, but I was in it for the wrong reasons. You know, like you should go into politics because you have some sort of expertise and you want to make a change. I had no expertise, and all I wanted to do was argue with dudes and you know, like make a fool of myself and get. I love David Longy, and like David Longy was a terrible prime minister. Like he went into power, didn't know what he was doing. You know, had like right-wing reforms when he was in the charge of a left-wing party, lost control of his own party, and then resigned and sped off down the Hutt motorway. But he was still my favourite because he was so funny and so charismatic. And so I just remember reading quotes, and I kind of wrote about the use of humour in politics, which has become more and more prevalent when you look at like of Donald Trump being a clown or David Seymour twerking on Dancing with the Stars. It really does work. And but now my look on politics is now that like you shouldn't be into politics for entertainment value. You should be in it for the right reasons. And I was in it for the wrong reasons. So comedy was a more natural. If you want to talk bullshit, get into comedy. Don't get into politics, I reckon.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I remember meeting this guy. I used to work at local government New Zealand, which looked up, it was like the advocacy body that looked after and advocated for all of the councils in the country. And I was at some networking event. I met this one young dude who was an elected member. And I won't say what council he's from, but I was like, oh, cool. You know, you're very young. Why do you want to get into politics? And he just saw it as a career opportunity. He was like, I want to be a career politician.
Wow.
And I don't know how that really sits with me.
There should be term limits.
I think
there should be term limits because it's like once you've done 20 years, you got to go, what am I offering now? Like I'm from Nelson. We had Nick Smith and he was just there for so long. And now he's the mayor. And it's like, it's more of just an ego trip at this point than an actual contribution. On the flip side, though, if you are someone who, like, you know, works in a field, like whether it be someone works in the entertainment industry and wants to argue for, like, you know, the New Zealand film industry, or someone who works in education and sees what's needed, like I feel like we need more like doctors and nurses and stuff, and or more. Sorry, not doctors and nurses necessarily. But we need more doctors and nurses. I feel like we need more like people who understand the medical system. Because the New Zealand healthcare system is effed, and none of the major parties seem to be doing a very good job of dealing with it. And I was like, you need some medical professionals who have been on the front lines who can kind of advocate for that. And I don't think we have enough. I mean, there's a few, but that's my big idea to save the world.
Totally. Legalise free dental care, I reckon. That would be a big
dental
one.
care is a big one, man.
It's huge.
It's something I noticed because my mum was always a big dental care advocate, so I was like forced against my will to go to the dentist every year. But in New Zealand today, there's a few things you notice travelling around small town New Zealand. Mainly, meth is a big problem. A lot of towns are very poor. Like you don't realise how rich Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch are compared to the rest of the country. And then dental care, yeah, man. The stuff you just, like people open their mouths and you see what's like crawling around in there and it's like, I don't want to say something. It's not my job and I don't want to, it's rude to go, your teeth are fucked, but I was like, you got to get there, especially if you're under 18 and it's still free.
Oh, 100%.
I think it's a great idea, free dental care, yeah.
Yeah, somebody should campaign on that and they'll get a lot of votes, I reckon.
Yeah, because on the flip side, like I was just thinking about how messed up it is. I want to get into mountain biking. I was talking to some friends out in Nelson who are big mountain bikers, and it's like, it's pretty outrageous that the government pays for a helicopter to go pick up a mountain biker who's biked out into the middle of nowhere and then broken their collarbone. And you're like, don't get me wrong, I'm all for, I want the government to pay for as much healthcare as people need. But like, there should be exceptions for when you're doing like extreme sports where you're likely to get injured.
Yeah.
I guess so. Once you make that argument though, then you go, well, rugby players, you know, do a lot of injuries and then rugby's the national game and maybe I'm opening a can of worms I shouldn't open up. I'm just saying it's weird we're subsidising helicopter flights for like rich guys in Nelson is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a fair point. They really thought of that actually.
Yeah.
If we move to New Zealand today, so you've had the opportunity to travel to many towns people would just pass
What an opportunity.
What an opportunity. And you've probably had the opportunity to speak to people you wouldn't usually sit down and have a conversation with. How has doing New Zealand today, how has that changed your perspective on, you know, people in the regions in Aotearoa?
Bro, it's been so good because we really live in massive bubbles. Like we don't even realise. Like, you know, like if you live on a farm, chances are everyone you know supports national. And if you live in my bubble, like the comedy arts, central Auckland community, everyone is a Green Party supporter, at least. Like most of my friends are like, the Greens aren't going far enough kind of thing.
True.
The Greens are soft, But then if you go to some farmers, the people are like, the Greens are the loony left, And what I realized is that the internet creates this like horrible, I mean, this is probably obvious to a lot of people, but it creates this horrible echo chamber, and it just pushes the worst of humanity at you every day. And from New Zealand today, most people in New Zealand are pretty good. And the ones who aren't good have something going on upstairs that isn't quite right and probably need help. I haven't really met anyone on New Zealand today, from homophobes to flat earthers to gang members, who I've gone like, I don't see a lot of good in this person. And I was like, I don't agree with all their views, and I don't agree with everything they do, but like, genuinely, like I can feel like I can put a positive spin on everyone. Like whether we should do that or not is another question. I mean that's the problem. That's the fine line of being a comedian and having a platform. But like, yeah, there's not one person I've interviewed who I haven't had a lot of time for and thought I can hang out with this. And maybe that's me, but I don't think it is. I'm like, most people are good people.
Yeah, totally.
And just when you go on the internet though, far out. You're like, you get the exact opposite opinion, right? You're like, these people are horrible. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Why are they so angry? Why, you see videos of whether it be like a 16-year-old beating up a 10-year-old or something, and you're like, you think the world's doomed. And you go to Taumaranui and you're like, the world's awesome. Tokoroa is awesome. I can't recommend it enough. But if you talk to people about it, all they'll say is like, it's a shithole. All they've got is a McDonald's, poverty, gangs, there's something wrong with it. But like, I was like, every town I go to, I'm like, I want to move here.
Yeah.
Even if it's a place no one would want to move generally.
Martin?
Yeah, I would definitely move to Martin.
Ooh.
It's okay. Let me tell you about Martin. Martin, beautiful farmland. Lovely people. A lot of just like weird, it's got like a weird culture where it's just like, I guess I couldn't spend a long time there, but if I had a nice house in Martin, I reckon I could live there. My defense is normally when I talk about small town New Zealand though, is it's near places. Like say you're in Gore, like it's near beautiful beaches, or it's not far from ski fields or something like that. Like every town is like a short drive from somewhere. Yeah. Martin isn't really near anywhere you really want to go in a hurry, to be honest. I can't think of a near beach or a ski field or anything like that. But it's on the way to Ruapehu. But I could live in Martin. I reckon that would be a cool lifestyle.
Martin, retirement plan, set it out.
yeah, absolutely. Like you see the positive in everywhere.
Yeah. Well, has there been any occasions through the filming of New Zealand Today where you've actually, because the people that you stumble across, man, like you could not write about them, the sort of personalities that you get coming towards you. Yeah. Has there been any people that you've almost felt sorry for their situation?
Of course. And it's really common as well. Like, there's a lot of, the gap between the haves and have-nots in New Zealand is big, and I assume it's getting bigger. From fucking David Longy, my old hero, very funny, not a great prime minister, from those like harsh neoliberal policy, like they basically, a town like Taumaranui was a forestry town, and then one day the government was like, no more forestry, and just dumped everyone on their asses. Yeah, wow. And it's not surprising that it spent the last 20 years trying to get back on its feet, and it slowly is. And obviously, people are making efforts, but like, there's a reason why, and there's parts of New Zealand that I didn't even know existed, and I think it's so important. People travel around New Zealand and experience different backgrounds, and everyone thinks they do, but they don't. But like, there's a few towns, I won't say what they were like poorer than, the poorest towns, but they're normally like, inland South Island or inland North Island, where they're just like incredibly poor, like, so many vape shops, so many, everyone's just living on Blue V or whatever. And you're like, this place needs investment. It needs help. It needs something. I don't know what it is. And you don't realize that. And you don't realize how rich where I live in Auckland is, and how privileged I am. And you're like, it's part of where the comedy comes from as well. Like, city, rural and stuff like that. But like, it's definitely an eye-opener. And I like that New Zealand Today shows that side of New Zealand as well.
Totally, man. It's such a cool show. Like, I can't tell you the amount of evenings I've spent watching that show just pissing myself laughing.
Oh, thanks, man. Cheers.
It's almost got this resonance to All Gas, No Breaks. Was it Channel 6 or Channel 7? Forgot what
Channel 5.
Channel 5.
Andrew Callaghan. I actually met him the other day, and then I did an Instagram post with him, and then he had a sexual assault scandal. And then I took my Instagram post down.
The timing of it.
Yeah, the timing was shocking. I don't know why, but I met him I bumped into him as a fan on the street.
Crazy.
He had no idea who I was. I was in Los Angeles just on holiday. And it's bad luck because we do something very similar. A lot of vox pops. We wear bad suits. We're on the street talking to people who wouldn't normally appear on television. And he's massively successful, and I'm a little fringe New Zealand thing in comparison. And so it's awkward because I don't want to look as like the shitty version of him. I'm like, do I need to wear a good suit? How do I differentiate myself? Because I want to wear a suit so I look like a journalist kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I definitely have really admired the stuff they do. I think what we do is different because he's more of an observer, he also goes to more crazy situations.
Yeah.
I'm not going to crazy situation. I'm going to, or I guess you'd call Martin a crazy situation, but it's just a street in New Zealand. It's just like that. If you dig a little bit beneath the surface, you'll realize that New Zealand's an interesting place.
Nice pun, by the way.
Pardon?
Beyond the surface.
Beyond the surface. Yeah, if you dig beyond the surface, that's damn straight. I definitely always looked at that show and really enjoyed it. And I'm really sad to hear about his
totally.
The stories about him, and I hope he can learn from it and turn over a new leaf. I was inspired. I thought his apology was good, and I hope that he can make amends and be an inspiration, because it's a big thing for our audiences is consent. I actually had a good moment just yesterday. I was down. I get into weird situations with kids, but I love jumping off things into water, and so wherever I go. There's always a bunch of kids there, and then all of a sudden I'm hanging out with a bunch of kids. And I came straight from the airport, so I had my suitcases, and I wanted to take my shorts off to put my togs on, and the kids are like, can I get a photo with you? And I'm like, can you just wait till I've got my dick in my pants first? I'm gonna get arrested on some sort of child sex abuse charges here. All these kids recognize me straight away, and but what was quite nice is one of these high school kids goes. We watched your video in class. And I was like, what? Are you watching New Zealand Today in class? Don't get me wrong, New Zealand Today is for the kids, but probably not appropriate for school time, learning.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be. Maybe it would pass in media studies or something. I don't know.
Social science.
Yeah, you might be pushing it. I don't know. Maybe,
biology.
Maybe you're doing a story on flat Earth. I'm not sure. But anyway, no, I did a video. I forgot I'd done it years ago. Lizzie Marvelly was making videos on consent and stuff like that. And they're like, we want you to come along and talk about this and stuff like that. And I need to see the video because who knows what I said, but I just thought that's so important. So I was quite proud that I was in this video and this kid saw it and remembered it. So I was like, yeah, stoked I was in a consent video. But I also need to watch the cringe, because every time I do an interview like this, I watch it 3 years later, I'm going oh, what was wrong with me? Hey?
Who is that person?
Yeah, who is that person? Yeah.
I think when it comes to New Zealand Today and Channel 5, with that type of content that you're putting out there,
I hate when you call it content. I hate the new world of content.
Yeah, well, what would you call it?
I'd call what I do comedy. Calls himself, Channel 5 calls himself journalism.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's journalism.
Yeah.
It's like Vox. If it's journalism, okay, I don't want to, no disrespect to him, but it's like Voxies aren't really journalism. I know they appear on the TV news, but it's the worst type of journalism, right? You're here's a story. I'll go interview 20 people on the street and get the craziest ones and use them into a little soundbite. That's not journalism. New Zealand Today is not journalism. I think you can learn things from it, but it's definitely editorial, and it's for what I do is we're going for comedy first and foremost.
Yeah.
And there's always a message. I think comedy has victims and it has messages and stuff like that, which is all fine. But the first option is to be funny. And so I like to call it comedy, and I get scared when people call it content, because my theory is that New Zealanders are scared of calling themselves comedians. And, a lot of people like Paul Henry, he's a comedian. He's not a journalist. He's not he's a talking head. He's a comedian. And they call themselves a broadcaster. But that's just cowardly, because in New Zealand we're afraid to call ourselves comedians, because, people on the stuff comment section or Facebook or whatever will be like, oh, he's the worst comedian I've ever seen in my life. It's like, I'm not worried about that. It's people on the internet can't hurt me that much. I'll own it. I'm a comedian.
Yeah.
Proud of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess with the comedy of then New Zealand Today and Channel 5, as well as the sort of journalism piece, which is sort of tucked inside of it.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's such a demand for that sort of, again, not content, but what you're doing? So many people.
Sorry to rage about content. You're using the term that everyone uses, and I'm trying to get it out there that content's shit. And when kids go, "I love your content," it annoys me, but it's totally fine. The problem is me, not you.
Okay, thank you. I guess what I'm trying to say is why is that sort of piece of viewing or content, why is that so attractive to so many audiences now?
Oh, well, I think the reason Channel 5 in New Zealand today works is because they're funny.
Yeah.
So, that's the first and foremost thing. It's entertaining. But it helps to have, a bit of a narrative. And if you can trick people into thinking they're learning, they're not really educational, maybe a little bit. And New Zealand today, I like to think there's at least a travel porn element. You're I wonder what Greymouth looks like.
Yeah,
there it does. And we make towns look bloody good, by the way. I'm sick of the Harwater Council and stuff don't want to see it. I'm I swear that's the best fucking Harwater has ever looked in its goddamn life. And it's just so annoying that the council is being so restrictive on us, trying to constantly shut down what we were doing. Because I get it. We're making fun of your council being an embarrassment, but the council is a bit of an embarrassment, and just have a laugh and move on.
Totally.
And I think New Zealand towns need to embrace their
uniqueness.
Yeah, and uniqueness. I was going to say accidental comedy potential. Lean into, Springfield has a plastic donut, towns that have a giant carrot or whatever, they know it's a bit shit, but it gives you something, it's better than just people just speeding through your town and not noticing it at all.
Totally.
Why not? Why not make your town memorable for something,
Totally.
Oamaru has steampunk. What is steampunk? No one gives a shit, but it's got, it's nice to have a little bit of culture down there. Yeah.
How do you find these stories that you get on New Zealand Today? And also, how scripted is the show? Do you come in there with a really clear agenda? We're meeting with A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Because the vibe you sort of get watching it is it's really free flowing.
Yeah. Well, we find most the that's a nice compliment, thank you. We find most of the stories, I like stuff, just actual journalist work is the main thing. And that's been sad because I've really seen firsthand how newsrooms have been destroyed. Nelson Mail used to be a full paper, and sadly, because of the rise of the internet and social media,
True.
the Nelson Mail has been devastated. So there used to be a lot of reporters in every town, digging up these, human interest stories, which work so well for my story, for my show. And then just friends, social media recommends them to me sometimes. And just I do hire comedians to come in and go. It was Lana Walters gave me two of my best stories, and she's just I live in New Lynn. She's an Auckland stand-up comedian. I live in New Lynn, and there's a sign that says Guppy Fish Farms. Can you go research that? And I was yes, cheers, Lana. And she's I went to Opanoni, and there's this town that's just obsessed with a dolphin. And I'm that's pretty sick, but not very funny. And she's the dolphin died 50 years ago. And I'm that's funny. And they're and I think they murdered the dolphin. And I was jackpot, get me there, you know? And so that's how we find them. And then Opanoni and the Taniwha and the dolphin story was a really good example of we went there to investigate a dolphin murder, and then we found the Taniwha, and we're no, the story's about this guy, Herb Leaf, absolute legend, and just such a charismatic local personality. And so we always have a plan, and we always have what we think it's going to do.
Yeah.
And then you just let it flow. And the best stories have been the ones where the plan hasn't gone to plan.
Yeah.
So a good example is Martin, where I was actually in Fielding, because I was there's got to be gold. I've gone to Fielding a few times because I'm there's something not right with that place. And Fielding, I knew there was something dodgy. They won New Zealand's most beautiful town 16 times in a row.
Right. Yeah,
and I'm that's got to be bullshit. And that's another place where the stories come from. I drive around and I go, what the fuck is going on here? Something weird is up, And you see that often in New Zealand. I'm trying to think of another one where I'm passionate. Whether it be there's a rugby team called the Crusaders, or what the fuck happened to the Christchurch Wizards. But I always thought Fielding was weird. And I was trying to find a story in Fielding. We were in the area anyway, Fielding something else. And it's the way we told it in the story, but there was a guy with his house. It was one of those stories that would pop up on stuff.co.nz every year. It was a guy trying to sell his house for 15 years, and the photos were it was flooded and stuff. And when I got there, he basically told me to fuck off. But he explained the real story. The real story was that he was angry at the council because his house was in an area where the water flooded through, so he got flooded every year, and he wanted the council to put in better irrigation. So his protest was to put his house on the market, but it wasn't actually for sale. He was kind of happy there.
Oh, gotcha.
So our story fell over, and like that was like the first hour of shooting, and we got like 12 more hours to film, and we're like, what are we going to do? So what we always do is just go to the streets and just walk around and just try and, you know, like someone will have something, they'll know something about that. It's a tiny town. And then, yeah, this ginger man leaned out the window of like a Honda Civic or something and goes, and then it's like his orange hair was like flying in the wind. And when I see people like that, I'm like, come over, pull the heck over. And he pulled over, and it was Isaac from Josh and Isaac. Josh was driving, and I started doing an interview, and the first question was like, what are you guys up to? And they're like, we've just come over to Fielding to have some breakfast. And I was like, wait, it's 9:30 in the morning. And I'm like, what are you getting for breakfast? And he's like, having some Pizza Hut for breakfast. And I was like, what the These guys immediately, I'm like, I want to know everything about you and your Pizza Hut for breakfast diet and like what's going on in your life. And from there, because I was like, I understand people having Pizza Hut for breakfast, but you also like an early riser having Pizza Hut for breakfast. Like there's something interesting about that. Like they're like rise and grind, but rise and grind for a terrible lifestyle. And so yeah, and from that point on, we just interviewed them, and like I was just like, wherever these guys want to go, we're going. And that was one of my best ever stories with Josh and Isaac, the legends from Martin. Yeah.
They're fucking awesome, mate.
They're legends.
I was watching that just the other day, and their personality and character, man, just so good. And have you done a bit of work with them following that?
Yeah,
with shows and stuff.
So that's what I learned about New Zealand today. I learned that. Small town New Zealand, like the more isolated it is, the more interesting and better it is. Like places, like even where I'm from, Nelson is pretty isolated. But like Granity, Greymouth, where was the place I went? Where it had no cell phone coverage.
Oh right.
What was it called? Down the bottom below Fox Glacier or whatever it's called. Oh, I've briefly forgotten the name of the place. But it was just like, 30 houses, everyone's obsessed with deer hunting, and no one has a cell phone. And it was just like, this is like in 2018 or whatever. And I was like, that's the most interesting place. And I've got to remind myself of that. The more isolated, the more interesting, basically.
Yeah. Are they like hitting Morse code to like, how the fuck are they?
It was a bit bullshit. Like they did have internet reception, so you just got to always be on the Wi-Fi. But like people down there were just different,
True.
Far north, they're just different. Deep south, they're just different. It's cool. And Martin, like there's just not a lot of traffic coming through there. It's a cool place to go and hang out. I'd recommend it. I forgot what the question was. What was the question? Oh, Josh and Isaac. I still with them. Yeah.
So what sort of work do you do with them now? Because you sort of took them out of the show, and have you been doing stuff with them in Wellington or?
Yeah, I did a live show. So my dream is to do like New Zealand Today live on stage. And so I got them, and Isaac wrote a rap, which was really cool, and performed a rap on stage. And it was cool because when people saw it, they're like, this is going to be funny. This is going to be shit, and then he got up there and actually like nailed his rap. And so it was like quite a cool, like subversion of expectations there.
Yeah.
And they were just cool. Like we took them to Auckland and went up the Sky Tower and stuff and just blew their mind. And that was really cool, just hearing like Martin Boy's impersonation of the big city and stuff like that. And yeah, we filmed a second story with them as well. We should do a third because they're just always such good value and up to weird adventures. We went ghost hunting in Martin because Martin's claims to be really haunted. Yeah.
Find anything?
Oh, bro. Okay, so it was the weirdest story. We had to pull the footage because we went to interview the mayor of Martin, like already gold, right?
Andy Watson.
Oh, how do you know who he is?
And LGNZ, my last work with the council.
Oh, yeah.
So he owns like a haunted house.
He owns a haunted house.
He does.
Is this not blowing anyone else's mind?
Yeah. He owns it's like a sort of scream factory, one of those things.
It's in Auckland's one of Auckland's best known attractions called Spookers.
Yeah.
In an old mental asylum, they have turned it into it's already scary. I would be scared to go through there at night, even if they didn't have any like killer clowns and stuff in there, but they do jump scares and stuff in the house, right?
That's not for me, eh?
It's
not for me.
It's a very well-known like tourist attraction in Auckland. There's a documentary about it that'd be cool to see. So my joke was that there's a weird subreddit called Martin. It was or Spooky Martin or something. They keep on changing their name, and there's a bunch of people on there, and I think it's a mixture of conspiracy theorists and people having a laugh who talk about Martin as being the most scary place. Like they talk about pagan rituals and like scary people coming up to your window and stuff like that. And you can't tell who's having a laugh and who is genuinely like chemtrails in the water, kind of gone full off the deep end. And so there was this conspiracy theory Reddit. We messaged everyone. We couldn't get one person to talk about. We were like, we've got to go to Martin. We'll talk to Josh and Isaac, a story will appear. And then we found out that the mayor runs a haunted house. I was like, this is so funny.
This is gold.
We'll go to the mayor and we'll accuse him. We'll tell a story, right? We'll go, the story was he owned a maze first. And the maze wasn't doing that well. He made it into a haunted maze where he had like a guy with a chainsaw scaring people and stuff. And it became a success, right? Then he moved to Auckland. He had a house. Well, pretty average house, not worth much. Turned into a haunted house. All of a sudden, it's a big business. He's got a town, Martin, not doing much. He turns it into a haunted town. And my theory was that he was starting a Scooby-Doo conspiracy that was trying to make Martin a tourist attraction by making it haunted. And I thought that was quite funny. Obviously, I do not believe that's true. But he was so offended that I'd even accuse him of this that he made us delete the footage and
You're joking, really?
Yeah, and I still can't figure it out. I want to talk to him. It's like one of those ones where there's so many loose ends and I want to follow up because it was such a funny interview and I couldn't figure out why he got cold feet. But I was like, does he think Martin actually is haunted and me coming down there is going to... Yeah, and I did meet some people in Martin who were like, this is a ghost town. I met a person who was a Ghostbuster, and then I met some people there who are paranormal investigators from the Manawatu, and they came across, and then when they found out what sort of show it was a comedy show, they're like, you're going to take the piss out of us. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take the piss out of you. You're fucking ghost investigators. You're Ghostbusters. But also sell, I got weird hobbies as well. I play soccer with my mates. We put on our football boots and go run around in a paddock. Every hobby is weird when you think about it. Yeah. It's good on you if you and your friends have a good time searching for ghosts. I was like, nothing wrong with that.
Sometimes they say no comment if a journalist goes to speak to somebody about a story that says 1,000 words, right? So Andy Watson, you got some answering.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you again because I want to find out about the conspiracy of Martin being haunted, yeah.
Through all your work with New Zealand Today, what's been your absolute highlight? What's been your favourite part of doing that show?
Probably just shooting. I hate when people have bad answers. You almost need to give these questions in advance because in 2 days' time, I'll think of something and go, that was the actual answer. But because I hate when people give boring answers to me and I'm going to give you a boring answer and go, just the fun.
Just the people.
Yeah, meeting the people out in small town. But no, it is sick. When you go to Opanoni and not only have you met Herb Leaf, the best guy I've ever met in my life, but you're there, you're staying on the water in the summer in New Zealand. You're after work, you're jumping in the sea and stuff. You're in paradise and you're filming comedy and it's going well. You're that is a highlight. And the low light is having to edit the bullshit you filmed because that's hell on earth. But so that just times are spent in Granity and stuff. And you'll notice I end up in the water in quite a lot of the shoots, and it's because it's real hot and I'm in a suit and I love swimming. And so I always let's get a shot where I do a manu in a suit or it was Evan, the cameraman's idea to get me fighting the water in Granity and stuff. And we use this footage and it's the end of the day, but always trying to jump in for a swim. And it makes a town more appealing if there's a good place to swim as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What is the best thing we've done? I think just being proud of the stories, the Mongrel Mob story, I'm really proud of it. It's quite controversial.
That's a crazy one, man.
Yeah.
That is a really crazy one.
Yeah, the Mongrel Mob story, Herb Leaf and Granity are probably my favourites. Oh, and Nanga and Taranaki. Yeah, sorry. You're going to talk about Mongrel Mob.
Yeah, I was because I was watching that again the other day and their whole premise with the interview is they're obviously a fucking notorious, horrible gang, do lots of bad shit.
Yeah.
But they run a side healthy eating Facebook
which is
group.
Naturally funny. Yeah.
So do you want to talk about what that interview was like and were you just fucking shitting bricks talking to this guy?
Yeah, I guess I was. It's hard to remember what I was like now.
Where was it? Hawke's Bay or
Gisborne? Yeah. No, for a start, I just really liked Koei. I thought he was a great guy. I thought he was very similar to myself, we're similar in age. And all I saw there was just completely opposite opportunities. I just thought he has had no opportunities and not surprisingly ended up in a gang, and I've had every opportunity. Ended up with a very privileged career. And I thought he was funny, smart, charismatic. I got nothing but nice things to say about Koei East, but also I understand I got a lot of blowback for that story as well for platforming a gang. Obviously, I don't think gangs are a healthy thing for New Zealand, but I also understand why they exist, and I, think politicians need to do more to stop people from feeling like they need to join gangs. Because you understand when you're in small town New Zealand why people would join a gang. Like, not 100%. Many jobs, not many opportunities, not many opportunities to feel like a provider or a man or something like that. And so it's like, there's a lot to be said for joining a gang in terms of what it provides, in terms of sense of community, a lifestyle, a living, and like a sense of pride,
100%,
which is pretty big. But at the same time, I understand when people like complained about it. And one of the people, it wasn't actually one of the people we interviewed, but one of the people who was in the footage that we purchased off another news organization. We're not a news organization, off an actual news organization. That guy had serious charges against him. So we had to pull the story originally to edit him out. He was just in for like one 10-second clip, but we had a lot of blowback for that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what was I shitting myself on the day? Maybe a little bit, but like as I said, Koei was a charismatic guy, and it was just
like, do you give?
Yeah, I guess I was. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, like you're cracking jokes about
swastika face tattoos. Yeah.
Did you sort of go into it talking to him like, "Hey, I'm a comedian. I'm going to crack some jokes. It's all lighthearted."
Yeah.
Do you just rock with it?
Yeah, but jokes, you never know how jokes are going to go, man. Like, it's like people always use the term triggered or whatever, but like, you can't tell what you're going to get offended by or what's going to make people pissed off. Sometimes I do stand-up comedy gigs and people start arguing with me on stage or something. It's like, you don't know where the line is, and I often get the line wrong. Like, not in a serious way necessarily, but that's how I met Sonny Bill in the first place. Is that I didn't realize that like some of these jokes were as edgy as maybe other people interpreted it as. Like, I ran into one clip that people always remember of mine is me and David Tua, and I didn't realize your mama jokes were like. Because growing up in Nelson, in a white community, your mama jokes was kind of a common thing, common insult. And
you'd have to have at least like 10 in your back pocket.
Every day
it's like, your mama's so fat.
Yeah. And on the flip side, in Samoan communities, it's like sacred. And I just realized, I think Samoan. Is David Tua Samoan or Tongan? Fuck, I don't even know. That's embarrassing.
Anyway, I get what you're trying to say.
No, as another white guy, you can't be like, oh, it's fine, mate. I think he's Samoan. I'm pretty sure David Tua is Samoan. Is David Tua Samoan? I'm Googling that right now.
Yeah, let's fact check that.
You can't be like, well, mate, it's all the same. Yeah, Samoan. Okay, I got it. Sorry.
Good job.
I was creating a fuss about nothing. I lost confidence for a second there. I mean, it's probably Tongan culture as well. I'm not sure, but like in a lot of other cultures, they just take your mama jokes or something like that in a different way. And there was obviously he was genuinely like defensive of his mum. I was trying to rile up a fight between him and David Tua, which is a news story at the time. Sorry, a fight between him and Sonny Bill. And I had a lot of jokes, and like they were much worse than that. And that was my first one, and it went bad on the first one. And I was scared, not because I thought he was going to punch me or anything like that. I was scared because just like I felt bad I don't feel good pissing people off. I do piss people off a lot, and so sometimes I don't give a fuck. Sometimes I'm like, nah, I don't think you're right. If it's someone I think is like. I don't feel bad pissing off like an anti-vaxxer or something like that, for example, really.
But it's David Tua, like, the man's, he's a muscle mountain of a man, but he deserves all the fucking respect.
I felt bad if I genuinely offended him, which I don't even know. He might have been laughing the whole time, but he definitely was like, no mum jokes. If I genuinely offended him. But what's really funny about that is that I jump with fear from offending him and from, being a little bit intimidated, a lot intimidated. It looks really intense on the cut, but like in reality, I was so far away from the cameras were like, 5-10 meters back. There was no way. I was completely safe, but I was still just terrified of him. And but on the edit, it looks like we're like a meter apart,
Fuck, man. Just as soon as you say, because you say like, oh, Sonny Bill, oh no, David Tua, what do you say? Sonny Bill's saying stuff about your mum.
Yeah. Did you hear what Sonny Bill's saying about your mum?
And it just feels, as soon as you said that, the air in the room just got
yeah. But to be fair, at a press conference, if you make any joke, even if your joke hits, it's gonna go. It's just the New Zealand way. Like, I don't know why it is, but like the slight sense of like awkwardness, New Zealand just like, you know, seizes up. It happens at my gigs as well. I can almost like use it as a comedy's about tension and release. So like
true.
it creates a bigger laugh because like the air coming out of the room is what gives it that explosive comedy.
It's the 1-2 setup.
Yeah.
How do you deal with hate, bro? Like, you know, how do you personally deal with haters? I heard some stories how you used to Google up or search your name on Twitter just to see, you know, people and what they're saying about you.
It was a mistake. Well, what I learned is that when I started in comedy, Mark Watson, a well-known British comedian, we're like, what's your advice for comedy? And he was like, don't Google yourself. And of course, as a kid, you just don't listen at all. And straight up, you're just like desperate for any media.
Totally.
And then it takes a while. You have to be relatively known because you got to be known well enough to get people hating you. So I almost like it. I took it badly at first and used to just reply to people and screenshot people and get into Twitter arguments. And then I realized, hopefully your career gets to a point where there's so much of it, you can't deal with it, you know? And you realize that there's that toxic part. Because I was one of those people, I reckon. I've been on Twitter for a long time and I'm one of those people who talk shit about a lot of people and, you know, get myself into trouble with a Facebook post or something like that. And I quickly realized that maybe I was being mean to people to make people feel better about myself, to make myself feel better or something like that. There's that toxic element of like social media. But also I realized that everyone gets hate. Like LeBron James has had the perfect career. He was famous when he was 14 years old. He's gone through, you know, at 17 or whatever, he signed a multi-million-dollar contract. And forever that, he's been one of the most famous people in the Western world.
No scandals either, really.
No scandals. He's never done anything majorly wrong. You know, he's made a few weird comments recently about China and a few other things. But like he supports Deshaun Watson, who's probably a sex offender. But besides that, LeBron's had a pretty squeaky clean and people still passionately hate him. And I realize it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to have people giving you heck. And it's almost like it's almost a good thing. It kind of shows you've made it once you do get people criticizing you. Because like, if people are tearing down LeBron James and, you know, I remember when people were calling for Dan Carter to get dropped from the All Blacks.
Crazy.
If people are pulling apart Dan Carter, then I can handle a few people saying I'm shit at comedy, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But the main tip is don't look at it. Like Mark Watson was right. Just try and avoid it.
Yeah. I was the same. I've had nowhere near as much reach or exposure as you had, but when I was 16, because I became a kid boy and became a father the same year.
Wow.
And that...
You want to be on New Zealand today? Amazing accomplishment. Yeah.
He can sniff a story from anywhere. But with that came like a lot of media attention, right? So it started a massive nationwide...
Yeah, I'm surprised I missed that story. What year was this?
Probably 2016.
Sorry, this is probably the darkest time of your life. And I'm like, tell me more.
Tell me more,
But also working on John and Ben, I was like a connoisseur for like weird small town stories.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to ask you, like, well, was it a dark time in your life?
It was. And it also wasn't, if that makes sense, because... I think it helped break down a lot of stereotypes around what like a teen dad or a teen parent looks like.
Yeah.
Because at the time, it's a crazy story, but obviously my daughter was born. I hid all this from my parents, from my dad who's behind the camera.
Your dad's here. Shout out to Dad.
And my mum.
Dad's like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
So he still doesn't know. He's finding out right now. Yeah. He's like, oh, where's this kid?
You got a 7-year-old granddaughter. But it was crazy because I hid it from my parents until Kyla was like 2 months old.
What?
Because I was just so ashamed of what they might think of me.
Of course. No, that's totally understandable, but also impressive.
Yeah. So I saved up to buy my first car so I could like visit my daughter after school. And I snuck out of home. My two mates picked me up with their learner license on like a Sunday night, drove us into Wellington Hospital and back, and went to school the next day and didn't say, you know, a word to anyone.
Well, that was when the baby was born.
Yeah, like held my daughter for the first time.
Out.
Got back home at like 5 a.m. through the back door and then just went to school like nothing happened.
Far out, bro. That's a lot.
It was crazy. It was just so hard to tell anyone because in my head, what I saw was a teen dad is someone who's just a drop kick on the beddy, handed Dorito packets, you know, that sort of thing. So when this whole story came to fruition, it set up like the perfect debate. Like, could you be a leader, a young leader, and also be a dad at 16?
Yeah.
But in saying that, like I called up Newstalk ZB before the story broke to have a chat because the whole conversation was like how you've changed being a parent in New Zealand. And I had just told my family, I was like, cool, I'll give them a call. And I was like really proud and happy. So I told them my experience. I was 16-year-old dad.
When you say you called up Newstalk ZB, you mean you approached them or they would approach you?
It was just talk back. So, they're like, call me on whatever the number is, 0800.
Oh, wait. You called up Talkback to talk about your story?
Yeah, because the conversation was, this is before it was actually a news story. And the conversation, looking at all these dads calling up, talking about how cool fatherhood is. And I just became a dad. So I was like, fuck yeah, I'll give them a call and, say the same thing.
Okay. There's so much to unpack here, man. This is so interesting to me. For a start, what 16-year-old listens to fucking Newstalk ZB?
Bro, a young dad. That's the thing.
What town? Are you in Wellington?
Porirua.
Are people in Porirua listening to Newstalk ZB?
Probably just me. Sorry, mate.
That's strange. Okay, yeah, continue.
Yeah. The gateway drug was definitely the podcast. So I'm glad I'm not doing talkback. But yeah, so I pretty much called them up and said my story, and then I went to like an ad break because it was my first time ever speaking on like public news or anything. And I was
so you were on the air with them,
yeah,
and they threw you to an ad break.
Yeah, so I was on the air. No, I talked to the host, told them my spiel.
So I don't think people maybe watching knows how crazy this is or listening. This is like. You're going, like, talkback radio is like the lion's den. It's like the worst. If you're getting media management, that'd be the worst idea of place to go.
Dude, I had no idea.
And so the guy doing the, I understand, and I've worked in radio and probably been exploitative of people, but that guy was exploitative. I'm assuming it was a dude.
Yeah, it was.
And so he goes an ad break because he's probably talked to you for like 6 minutes. So he'll put in some ads and he's like, this is off air, he's going, this is a gold mine.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And so he's like, he's doing the ad break because he knows that like the calls are going to flood. Fucking hell.
You nailed it. So I carried on my drive. I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. And
that went well. And I bet the guy on the other end was pretending to be real good about it.
Yeah, and he was just kind of chirping away, poking the bear, asking some questions. And then the whole conversation, when it returned from the ad break, was a change from, what are your best stories from fatherhood or whatever it was to should this Noah guy be head boy or not? So I'm driving in the car and I've just got all these fucking Karens and boomers being like, he's ruined his life and his daughter, he should be sent to prison and hung, like the most crazy, outlandish.
Even just to word this, like I mean, that's how you do a good talkback phoner, right? But like just to word it in that way, like it's so loaded straight away.
Totally.
Because like if you worded it in a more neutral way, you'd get people calling up and going like, I was a dad at 16 and my kid's doing beautiful. It's the best decision I ever made, kind of thing.
Hard out.
Fuck, I'm so sorry.
No, man. But I think it like really helped to shine a light onto. And my mum put it to me really good. She's like, you can put your head down and be like, yeah, I'm a teen dad, or you can be like, fuck yeah, I'm a young dad. Like, this is awesome. I've got my whole life to spend with my daughter. I'm not going to be old and crusty.
I had sex once.
Yeah, the bloody poster child for fucking sex education and what not to do at OT college. But yeah, it's a bit of a story, but that's my only experience dealing with haters, and that was fucking hard on me. So with at your level, like that must just be tough. Man.
Oh no, but for me, it's like they don't like my comedy. It's not really me, like it's like comedy divides people naturally. Like, name a comedian who's not like quite criticised. There's no comedians who are universally loved. Like maybe Robin Williams, but then there's a lot of people who thought Robin Williams. Like let's be honest, Flubber was a heap of shit.
Yeah,
there's a lot of reasons you can hate any comedian. There's not many Bill Cosby was universally loved for a long time until it was revealed he was a rapist. But there's not many comedians who are like, don't divide people. With your situation is so much worse because it was you and it was your life experiences.
That's true.
And that's why it was irresponsible of the radio host to do that to you because he knew it was going to go that way. And the attacks are very personal. Even for Jono and Ben, when Jono and Ben were ended, it was just a weird thing. They're probably fine with it and they probably don't give a fuck. But I just thought it was weird that when we got cancelled, thank you so much for filling up the water. That was great hosting.
You're all right, mate.
Jono and Ben, the show was called Jono and Ben. So it wasn't like, say New Zealand Today gets cancelled. New Zealand Today gets cancelled. I'm fine. But it was like Jono and Ben cancelled.
True.
Jono and Ben are ending. It was like literally their name. And for you, it's like these people are literally judging you personally.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's made you stronger to come through that, bro. That's a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just so grateful for it. If I look back to who I was at 16, getting dropped the bombshell that you got to be a dad. And just my mentality was so dark at the time, and who I am now. Hopefully, it's a cool story for my daughter Kyla when she grows up.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. And you get to be like a cool young dad as opposed to an old dad who's disconnected. You know, your dad seems quite cool and young.
Yeah, he gets there.
No vouch for dad. Come on. He's here shooting this podcast with fucking a shit celebrity like me. He's a good guy.
Yeah, no, he does well.
That's amazing. Okay, so how did you hide it from your parents so long?
That's a great question. I just hid it up.
But there's a kid being born. The mum has parents, right?
So, okay, I'll tell you how the story gets crazier. Is my mum was pregnant at the same time. So my mum and my dad broke up when I was younger. So that was an added bit of pressure. I didn't want to stress out my mum while she was pregnant. So my mum had her baby on the Friday night at Wellington Hospital, Friday the 13th of March, 2015. So
it's like a bad movie, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
If you wrote that into a script, people would be like, change the date. That's too cliche.
And so she had my baby brother Jimmy on the Friday.
Shout out to Jimmy.
Shout out to Jim. So I held him for the first time, which was like pretty cool. And then
it's because you got a dry run of what a birth is like.
Yeah. And then 2 days later, I got the text that my ex was, heading into labour. So there was a potential opportunity where my mum and my ex, who was having my baby, could have been at the hospital at the same time, not knowing
this is like a bad Lindsay Lohan comedy, and you're trying to like get them, you're trying to hide them from each other.
That's right.
And you dress your ex up like as an old man so they can't tell. And oh man.
Yeah. So then on the Sunday, it's just 2 days apart.
But sorry if this is too personal, and you can edit this or whatever. But so your ex had parents.
Yep.
Who knew about the pregnancy?
Yeah, of course.
Be pretty hard to hide when you've got a belly and stuff. And you just told them, don't tell my parents or something. Yeah,
they were like, bloody hat goes off to them, mate. They're such an amazing family. And they told me, like, it's not our business. They're pretty much standing by if you're here for Kyla, my daughter. They were happy as.
All right.
They said, that's up to you to sort
out.
You
They'll let a 16-year-old think of his plan, and his plan is keep it secret from the grandparents.
Totally.
Clever.
So it was. I've got this heartbreaking letter which I wrote to my dad and my mum, and it was pretty much. It's pretty fucking funny to read, but. It's because I couldn't bear the thought of saying this face to face to them. So I was like, okay, what are you going to do? You're going to write a letter.
That's a really good idea, though.
Yeah, get it all out in writing. That's going to run away for a few days. And
where's the plan to run away from?
I think I was going to stay at my mates in the garage or something. Problem solved.
Here's the letter, Dad. All right, off to the garage now. See you later.
Yeah.
Don't try and message me because I'm going to be invisible.
Exactly.
Far out.
But no, man, it was a crazy, crazy fucking time.
Wow. Yeah, and good on you for coming out the other side, and good on for the mother, and good on you for your dad and everyone. That's a lot to go through. Were you the head boy before or after?
I was head boy.
Like did you have it? So you had a child. You had head boy, and then you got the child.
No, other way around. Had the child, then I became head boy.
Did you use the child to help become voted head boy?
No, it wasn't some shitty politician.
You're like holding the baby up at your speeches and stuff. Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
Was the head boy voted by the students, or was it voted by the teachers?
There was a bit of both. So mainly through.
Because isn't that like a feather in your cap that like the teachers and the students still backed you?
Yeah, I guess so. I think it says a lot about, Aotea College in the heart of Porirua, really diverse community and cultures sort of coming together.
Yeah.
So we're pretty renowned for teen pregnancies in that college. So
yeah, you got to. It makes you fit right in.
Exactly. A lot of the voter base were like, oh, he's one of us.
yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, man.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Cool, man. I really wanted to.
That was so interesting. Thank you. That was the best bit of the podcast. Edit your story, because your story is much more interesting than mine.
No.
I'm always worried that I'm quite a boring interview because I've actually done nothing interesting. But that was, I'm really glad I came to this. That was fascinating. Good on you, bro.
Cheers, mate. Before we wrap up, I've got some quick fire questions.
Oh, I've got to get to the quick fire.
I did want to just ask for you. I guess we can bake this into the quick fire.
I've got quick fire questions for you. No, I'm joking.
Oh, shit. What is your why?
What?
What is your why?
My why?
Yeah, like what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh, I've never heard of that. I don't really get out of bed in the morning. I'm a comedian. I wake up very casually. I enjoy cycling, or like exercise is normally the first thing I do. I bike to work, and like that. I like biking to work, so it's like makes it quite a fun way to get up. But it gets me up in bed in the morning. I actually struggle with the mornings at the moment. I like wake up with quite a lot of anxiety. Like a lot of people get anxiety before bed.
Yeah.
But I get it in the morning. I wake up, I'm like, think of every bad thing, and then I go on the Guardian app and read all the problems in the world and go, oh, it's getting even worse. And then I eventually calm down, and head into work. But I guess just I enjoy 90% of the stuff that I do. I'm so lucky with my job and stuff. Yeah.
That's nice.
Love it.
What's your worst travel story?
Worst travel story. I think you got to set these in advance because I was like, a worst travel story? I don't think I've ever had a bad travel experience. You know, I was like, even New Zealand today, even touring in small town New Zealand, I can't think of anything going bad.
Here we go.
Filming New Zealand today, we dropped off the talent and she talked about how good her life was. There was this kid, she was like 17, 18, who'd had a hell of a life. She was on the run from the police.
Fuck.
She was taunting the police. The reason it was a New Zealand Today story, the reason it was funny is because she was taunting the police on Facebook. On Facebook. So they'd put up a mugshot going, we're looking for this girl. And she would be in the comments going like, you'll never catch me. It was quite funny. But anyway, she was talking about how good her life was. We had a great day with her. She was such a cool kid. And then we dropped her off at the house she lived in. And this car came up the road. And it was the dudes, just quite intimidating dudes with the dudes she lived with. They might be fine, but the dude had a swastika on his head, which is like, in my mind, again, I met Coey the Rogue, he had swastikas on his face, so you don't want to, people make mistakes in their past or whatever, but he like kind of, the way I remember it is he kind of like, he picked up a hammer. There was just tools. This is a farm. There's tools all over the ground, but like, it was kind of menacing that he had a hammer and he's like, you're not going to, make fun of my friend, eh? And I'm like, well, we kind of are. It's a comedy show, but hopefully in like a respectful and loving way, take the piss, but like also like, hopefully New Zealand Today is kind of feel good. And so just running into that guy and then getting in the car and just speeding away as fast as we fucking could. And just also feeling bad for her. And I hope if she's watching or whatever, I hope she's doing well. That was a weird experience, I think. So maybe that was my worst.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, especially escalating to a hammer straight away. At least throw some punches.
And it might have been fine. It's just like when you get a swastika, it changes the context of everything,
Yeah, swastika plus hammer.
Yeah, good. bad formula. Yeah.
Have you got any good or bad never met your idol stories?
Yeah, I reckon you should. I don't want to tip you how to do interviews, but like I need because I've met so many people, and it's like good or bad.
What's your worst never met your idol story?
I don't think I have one. Most celebrities you meet, most people who are famous nowadays, because of social media and stuff, I reckon you get found out if you're a dick.
True.
You know how Alan, people are like, oh, actually Alan, this person who's like, her whole vibe is like positivity, is a huge dickhead,
Yeah.
Eventually the truth about Bill Cosby leaks out, So it's hard. So I think most people who are celebrities now are like really nice people.
True, that's a good point actually.
So like people like Sonny Bill being nice to me and stuff were really cool. But I'm just, fuck. Again, I just need time to think.
So there hasn't been someone you're like, I can't wait to meet them. Did you meet them? You're like, fuck, you're actually not who I thought you'd be.
Okay, I'll give you one. Bam Margera. And that's an obvious one. It was John O'Pride doing the interview. It was when I was in production before I got on screen. And it was kind of funny and sad at the same time. But like, we go out to Snow Planet, which is the indoor ski field in Auckland. And every kid who's at Snow Planet has got word that their hero, this is peak Jackass.
He was
Y2K,
huge,
huge celebrity. Yeah. He's endorsed by Globe. He's like one of the biggest pro skaters in the world. And he's on Jackass. Like, he's a god, right? And every kid who snowboards there had skipped the day of school to be there. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. And we're like, can't wait to see Bam. Like half of New Zealand media is there and stuff. Everyone's so excited. And the dude shows up and he's dressed like a pirate. He looks like fucking Russell Brand. And he fell over in the car park. This is a guy who's a pro skater, famous for stunts. And he can't even walk.
Was he pissed?
Into the ski field. Yeah, he's so fucked.
Fuck.
And at that point there, I was like, oh, that guy's secretly fucked. Because you find that out from time to time. You're like, oh, that guy's not who we thought he was. Or I guess kind of looking back on it now, you're like, that is who we thought he was. But, he's sober, obviously, when he's doing a kickflip. And when he's skating, he might have been a bit drunk. But, And so, I knew that years before he became the train wreck that he is. I hope he gets help because, he's a sad case. But even then, that might have been promoting like Jackass 2 or something, like early days.
True.
Yeah, so he was a letdown.
True, shit.
And all the kids, seeing the look on their faces, and I remember just saying to the kids, just be careful with alcohol, guys. It's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
You go from being a professional stuntman to someone who can't even fucking walk into the car park. The kids were so let down as well.
Yeah.
Because you kind of think the kids would be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm going to go drink at Cody's. But the kids, you could tell they were like, they'd never seen anyone in that sort of state. And you could tell he had to cancel all the interviews. Like he got like 5 minutes into his interview with MTV and they're like, we've got to cut this short.
No way.
It's sad.
Well,
yeah.
there's still some like content. If there's some footage of that still around.
Oh, I'm sure someone has it. But it's not interesting. It's just grim. Yeah.
I've got a fuck, marry, kill for you.
Okay.
Sonny Bill Williams, Dan Carter, or Bowden Barrett.
Oh, that's not fair. That's not fair. I mean, I love Sonny, but I'm sad he's doing some transphobic tweets yesterday. So I'm like, Sonny, why Sonny? Why? Anyway, I still love Sonny. He's a great guy. He's always been lovely to me. So I got to marry Sonny. Dan Carter. I'm so sorry to a New Zealand icon, Bowden Barrett, but Dan Carter's also been lovely to me the few times I've met him, and he's so sexy, so good looking.
I agree. He's a gorgeous man, eh?
Yeah. If I was 16 and Dan Carter was 16, we'd be having a baby. And Dan Carter, so I'd love to have sex with Dan Carter. Now, Dan, if you're watching, I'm keen anytime. And then Bowden. So that leaves Bowden. I feel bad though. I'm going to kill Bowden. I'm a coward. I'm a coward.
That's a loss to New Zealand rugby.
Yeah.
What brings you true happiness?
True happiness for me. I don't know if true happiness is a thing. Is that a thing?
Dunno.
I don't know.
Subjective, right?
I just recently, I've been reading some shit that's like aiming for happiness kind of makes you unhappy, or constantly thinking, am I happy? Is this happiness? What is happiness? But the things I really enjoy or get really like a dopamine rush from, having a new joke work on stage is the best drug.
True.
Having a joke fail is obviously like a punch in the face. And just having nothing on my calendar and exploring a city I've never been to.
Yeah, it's cool.
Or a town. I'll explore a New Zealand town I've never been to as well. But like, if I could just be in Barcelona and just wandering around, that's sick. I love that. Man. Yeah.
Advice you wish you knew about when you were younger?
Again, I need this in advance. I can't think off the bat. I haven't made many major mistakes, so I don't have many regrets. I do have regrets. Probably something about like when I was a young comedian, I was like, say anything, don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. If you can't handle the joke, get the fuck out the kitchen kind of vibe. And, I would have hurt a lot of people. And not only that, like my kind of like through comedy, it kind of encouraged bad behavior. So I was kind of a weird person in my personal life as well. I'd just be too blunt with people or too like on the nose. And like I hurt some people with things I said and stuff like that. And so if I could go back to 21, it's like sometimes just be nice and shut the fuck up. Like you're not always on camera. You're not always trying to get a laugh, So shut the fuck up would be the advice I wish I need that still now today.
I like that one.
Yeah.
If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
One thing in New Zealand, I wish we took... I wish politicians stopped beating up on Māori and Pacific Islanders. That's a huge one. I'm just seeing Luxon beat up on beneficiaries. It's like, who looks at the problems now at the world's facing and thinks it's the people at the bottom and not the people at the top? And I wish, this wasn't supposed to be a political rant, but like, I wish just like race baiting, like every election cycle, you can see Seymour going hard now.
100%.
Like just like playing the Māori card and stuff all the time. Māori are fucking over 50% of the prison population. No one's like, oh, they've got amazing special privileges. And like any politician who tries to tell you that like the problem is Māori or something like that is like being intentionally dishonest. And so I wish that part of politics should be about arguing about ideas, argue about tax cuts or lower taxes or whatever or private healthcare, fine. I don't agree with those things, but like you're welcome to have a platform. You're welcome to argue whatever political opinion you view, but don't sink to like picking out a minority and attacking them. That fucks me off. Also, I wish our rivers, I sound like this is like a Green Party stump speech. No, but it fucks me off that I talk about I love jumping into water.
Yeah.
so many rivers and lakes you can't swim in.
Yeah.
I went swimming in Wellington Harbour yesterday, and then today I read it. There was pure shit going into the harbour. Did you read that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Like one of the buildings, it might even be a council building, like they didn't have like the filter on properly.
Fuck.
And for like years, the shit has just been flowing into that. I was like, fucking, I was swimming in that shit, drinking that shit yesterday. I was trying not to drink it, but sometimes water goes up anyway.
Swimming mouth open.
So like we need to look after our rivers and shit. It's crazy, man.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And last one, what do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
I don't even know, man. Probably like anxiety and like fear of failure and fear of what other people are going to think. And I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know how to get over those things. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, if you can, and if the opportunity presents itself, it pays to kind of take risks and kind of, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. Sound like an inspirational speaker, eh? It's fucking inspirational.
That was fucking beautiful. Yeah. My favourite reply to that question is my mate Corin, who's a Muay Thai fighter.
Yeah.
He said it's vapes. I thought that was pretty good.
What is he saying?
That's the main thing holding back young people.
Oh, vapes. Yeah, that's a good answer, man. Vapes, vapes and V, and that being vapes freak me out, eh?
They're pretty crazy.
Yeah, and just everyone's on it, going so hard all the time, and it's Well, it's probably to fight the anxiety, right? It's probably watch out for the vapes, eh?
Awesome, guy. Where can people stay connected with you and your mahi and what you do?
Yeah, I mean, follow me on social media, I guess. But I mean, you don't have to. I mean, maybe you've heard this and thought, I never want to talk to that guy again. Stay away, if anything.
Sweet, bro. Always a pleasure. Cheers, man.
Thanks so much for having me, man.